It's time for AggroChat, the official podcast of the Tales of the Aggronaut blog and stalwart gaming community, where we talk about stuff and things, and the stuff about the things, and sometimes gaming. I'm Belghast, and let's start the show. Hey folks, it's that time again, time for another episode of AggroChat. This is episode 287. Tonight I'm joined by Ammo.
Hello.
Ashgar.
What?
Grace.
Hi.
Kodra.
Are we really ready, Belghast?
No, we're never really ready. Tam.
Hello, I'm ready. How about you?
And Thalen.
Definitely not ready.
So, yeah, like, we just went through a whole series of things that we probably should have recorded, but, like, I'm going to try and revisit one of them. There's a Sonic movie now.
There is a Sonic movie.
It appears to be a thing that exists.
I mean, I'm blatantly stealing from Lindsay Ellis, but I love her review of it's boring and mediocre, and therefore one of the top 3 video game movies ever.
Yeah, for a video game movie, that's high praise.
It is high praise.
And you say, but okay, so let's see. There's Detective Pikachu, and then what else?
The previous Resident Evil movies.
Like
Lara Croft.
Yeah, like I thought the Angelina Jolie Tomb Raider movies were pretty good.
Or that one, yeah.
Mortal
Not
Kombat
Resident
had a
Evil.
really great
None of those
soundtrack.
were good.
Helsing? Or was
Does
that
that count?
Was that a game based on a movie?
I thought Helsing was a comic.
That's based on a comic.
Yeah. See, comic book movies are allowed to be good now. Video game movies still aren't.
We're still really struggling with that concept.
I hear Birds of Prey is actually pretty good.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll get to go see that at some point.
It's officially made back double its budget, so nobody can even, by some slim margin, claim it's a failure, as so many people seem to.
Oh, they're still trying to.
I went into this, like, on Twitter, but they really need to figure out a way to watch first-run movies in your home. Like, that's a thing. Because getting me out into a theater is getting progressively harder and harder.
Yes.
I would be definitely for that.
I mean, there's a whole industry that will be really sad about this thing.
Yeah, well...
Yeah.
I mean, I won't be sad about it at all, but...
Buggy whip manufacturers were sad, too.
I mean, there are some things that I still want to see in the movies, but most things I do not. If it has a giant kaiju fighting giant robots, then yes, I want to see it in the movie theater, but pretty much anything else I can watch at home.
I feel like there will always be room for specialized experiences, kind of like the Alamo Drafthouse. So, like, I think movies and theaters will exist. They just won't be the main way of watching movies, and I'm down with that.
What you're saying is going to make Steven Spielberg incredibly sad, though.
You know, he can get glad in the same pants he got sad in. So, yeah. Anyway, there's a game that I have had access to for a really, really long time because while I didn't back the Kickstarter, I did buy into early access, and it is called Wolcen. And it was originally called Umbra. And I don't know, names change.
I mean, if you'd back the Kickstarter, you might be really mad about the state of the game right now.
Probably, because, yeah, I mean, it ended up being a different game than I think they originally said it was going to be, but, you know, the game that got created is pretty magical. Problem being, it's a very small studio.
So,
very small studio.
Before we go on with that, the game they made is basically a Diablo-like. That is definitely more Diablo-ish than anything else has come out since Diablo 3.
Right.
It's a thing of beauty.
It is what if Diablo 3 and Path of Exile had a love child, but it took more after, you know, the side of the family that was Diablo 3.
But also has really crisp, pretty graphics compared to Diablo 3.
Oh,
Yeah. Yes, and lovely animations, and like, I'm not used to playing CryEngine games, but like, if this is a thing, I'm on board with that because it's pretty. It's like really freaking pretty. Like, the mud is pretty.
Huh.
Like, as you walk past it, the mud lightly shimmers because it's wet, and not in like that plasticine manner that like sometimes happens. It's like, oh no, here's a patch of wet mud and here's a patch of drier mud, and you can differentiate between them, and this is all just stuff happening in the background. The whole Path of Exile thing comes into play because it's got a sphere grid. It has a much more sane sphere grid than a lot of games, but it's still a sphere grid. Like you do, there are no classes. Your character is defined by what gear you're using, and certain gear allows you to use certain abilities.
Even then, the only limitation there is what weapons you're using.
Yeah, that's really the big thing. Is like, so you cannot cast spells unless you are using a staff or a, what is this, catalyst?
Catalyst.
But you can put your catalyst in the offhand and put anything in the main hand, so you can pistol and catalyst, sword and catalyst, mace and catalyst.
Okay, so I have a vital question for you, Bill.
Yes.
Because you've been talking this game up to me for the last week.
Controller support is in the works.
Is it going to give me an RSI? Because, like, it's physically painful for me to play Diablo 3.
People have controller setups that work for this game already. Official controller support is not yet out, but it's not like Diablo 3 where there's no way to play with the controller at all.
Okay.
Yeah, like, so you can play right now with a controller. There's a config file that I think I linked somewhere where someone basically has set up, you know, a controller config for a Xbox or PlayStation 4 style controller.
So the answer is no, but you can kind of hack it in.
Well,
the game has a dodge built in, and like it seems designed for controller. So it's not so much, I mean, it is hack it in, but it is more functional than it would be for other games like this.
I don't know. I mean, my preference is still keyboard and mouse, so I hit space to dodge, and that's a thing. But
I'm just thinking more the click to move and click to attack, click to everything, click forever.
Yeah, I mean,
that is what a lot of people, including myself, want. So that is how this game is set up.
Yeah,
currently.
But you can use a mouse or a controller instead, and that's a thing.
And you can also use the keybind that I think Bell and I definitely use, which is you can bind the W key to force move, so you don't have to click to move.
Yeah, that control never worked for me because it's too weird for W. Like, I wish I could WASD and move like in cardinal directions and not towards the cursor.
The only game of this style that I've seen that works that way is Pagan Online.
Yeah, it really is. But controller for this reportedly works much like controller for Diablo 3 on the Switch. So
yeah,
I mean once you get it bound, like it's not set up by default, but you can bind it because it relies on the underlying Steam controller support.
The big thing that made Diablo 3 on the Switch work for me is that I could easily move in a different direction that I was shooting and not whipping my mouse across the screen in order to do it.
I don't have experience, but I'm playing with keyboard and mouse, but I hear it works well. So one of the more interesting things is like there is a push-pull relationship between your two consumable types, which are willpower and rage, and you use willpower to cast spells and rage to make melee attacks. And hitting things generates rage. And I don't know, I haven't played a caster much other than like a little bit of hybrid play. Does hitting things also generate willpower?
Staffs convert rage to willpower.
Okay. So that's giving you that functionality.
Catalysts don't, so hybrid builds are a little weird.
Well, yeah, because like basically, when in my experience playing hybrids, you're either spending willpower or you're spending rage. Because spending willpower generates rage, and spending rage generates willpower. So like, there's a back and forth on that line. But that seems to be interesting. I played around with a catalyst for a while until I went back to shield because I like shields. The kind of the problem that we're in is this is a game that had a concurrency of about 1,000 players, and then it officially launched and had a concurrency of 65,000 players.
Ouch.
And this is
so the servers have been down for the last 48 hours?
Yeah, and they're not expecting to have them back up in a state that's scalable until Monday. And it is Saturday night at the time of recording this. So this is what happens when you have a tiny studio with a tiny studio budget trying to somehow scale a game that suddenly got more popular, like significantly more popular. Luckily,
unlike Diablo.
Luckily you can play completely in offline mode.
Hooray!
So yeah, like the only negative with that is right now there's no way to take an offline character and convert it to an online character, and vice versa. So yeah, like basically I'll restart my journey once the servers come back up, but I'm playing an offline character right now and enjoying myself. And I have a silly build that no game has ever allowed me to create before.
Oh.
I am a super tanky character that is super resistant to everything, and I leap into the air and smash down, generating lots of rage, and then I whirlwind. And everything I hit with my whirlwind generates more rage, so I can just keep whirlwinding.
I mean, I feel like I played this build in Diablo 3.
You can sort of play it in Diablo 3, but the difference being, like...
You have to stop eventually.
You have to... Well, no, you can do it, like... That was what I played on the Switch this season. But it is really not a build for Sword and Shield. And it also... If you ever get hit, you die.
That's true.
And I am super tanky and can just spin and win, and it makes me happy.
I'm discovering the joy of ice spells and inflicting status effects.
So one of the things this game's got going on that's interesting is you have what they call active skill modifiers. So as you level up your skills, you eventually unlock points that you can put into skill modifiers. So like some levels give you another ability, some levels unlock another affix basically that you can tag on. Now these have a cost associated with them between 1 and 3 points. So you can say I want to add like a 3-point skill and it's going to do something super unique to your ability, or if you want, you can tack on like 3 1-point abilities. So, for example, right now, my Blade Storm, every time it hits something, it generates rage. And then it also has a greater chance of inflicting an ailment, and it also basically deals more damage from those ailments. So, I've tacked on 3 1-pointers that do a little thing that combined, like, really changes the way that feels.
Building combo.
It feels like an expansion of Diablo 3's rune system for abilities.
And I want to say there's about 100 different abilities in the game, and they all have...
I think it's only 40 total, but...
Really? I thought it was close. I thought it was bigger than that, but yeah, like the only thing that feels weird about it is you only get like one ability given to you at the beginning, and the others you either find in the world or through a spell vendor that has a random listing of abilities. So it can kind of be a little awkward getting the thing you want for your build.
Abilities from that vendor are fairly cheap, so I haven't had too much of an issue with it yet, but I'm still early.
Mostly reasonable, but yeah, I'm still very early.
And they reset their inventory like every 15 minutes, so...
Yep.
Like, it cycles pretty fast. If you really wanted to, you could probably just stand in town and recycle it a few times and
that sounds
get the
really
abilities.
Boring.
It would be really boring. So yeah, like I am hoping they survive this outage because people are pissed, but I have way more sympathy for a small company that is going through this than I do when it's like a AAA company. But
I mean, there are enough people online and scalable server scalable server solutions at the level that games ask for is still not really that feasible. So yeah, like games are just gonna break when they first come out. Like that's
and it sounds like they're basically having to negotiate deals with server companies now.
Yeah, well, and that's
whereas
the thing
they were mostly okay with whatever they were using previously.
Right, exactly. Which is really the thing, is it's like games are the worst imaginable server situation from an expense standpoint, because you need a massive spike a massive short duration spike of usage, which is like, if you're a server provider, that's the last thing you want to be doing.
I mean, this is what AWS and Azure are promising to deal with this specific situation, although I'm not sure if they're ready for games. I'm not sure what those deals would look like.
I don't know either. They're certainly not. I suspect they're not optimized for them.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if, like, to this point, their servers have lived in AWS land just as standard servers, and they're now probably having to negotiate something different because it's like a super high volume bursty connection. But I mean, I'm hoping they figure out something because, like, it's gotten buzz.
I was gonna say, I thought if we're in AWS, they would be in a better position for this.
I don't know. I don't know what their environment is right now.
But surprised, turns out your early access launch is not actually your real launch, which is not something I ever thought I'd say.
Yeah, it's been interesting to watch this because the way the game had been, it was very small, it was very niche, and now suddenly it's getting bigger attention and is struggling a little bit. But I mean, the offline version of the game is really fun.
Yeah, it seems totally fine. It's 100% playable and mostly is exactly the way that I normally play Diablo-like games anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So there's really no downside for me other than the fact that I will possibly have to re-roll a new character if I want to play with my friends later.
Yeah, and I'm not real sure what the end game even looks like.
I know you get to build a town.
Yeah, I've heard it has really interesting housing.
Housing, you say?
It's already got my attention from a cosmetic standpoint because it is of the family of games where everything you pick up unlocks its appearance. And
That's
also, when you find dyes, it just unlocks the dye permanently. Now, you have to pay money to put appearances on things, but, like, right now,
That
that's
is
problematic.
in-game gold.
Yeah, in-game gold. Like, right now, that is problematic because, like, I don't have much gold, but I figure at some point it will be just negligible amounts of gold.
Yeah.
It appears to be a fixed cost no matter what the appearance is, and early game you can't pay this cost. Eventually that will not be a problem.
Right, like 2,000 gold at some point will not be a big deal. But the biggest thing, like, for me, like, this is me admitting that I am vain, but, like, one of the biggest problems that I have with Path of Exile is the fact that, like, it takes a really long time for you to stop looking like a murder hobo that picked up a twig and is hitting things with it. Like, you look like you're a mess for a very, very, very long time in that game.
It's the Diablo 2 model.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas this game, like, my third set of armor is full plate and it's glorious.
Yeah, I mean, I'm level 10-ish, and I look pretty cool.
Nice.
Like, reasonable for, I don't expect to have the coolest, best armor at level 10, but I match. It looks nice. My weapons glow a little. These are the simple things I want out of life.
Exactly. I mean, it seems to have, like, abilities to support a lot of the standard, tropes for this. Like, there's a warp ability that's a spell, that's a teleport of some sort with all kinds of morphs for it. There's a Frost Nova type ability. There's fireballs, and the fireballs do lots of different things depending on how you spec them out. Obviously Whirlwind exists. There's leaps that exist. Scorpion's Chain exists.
I do like that.
People to you.
I do like that if you play melee, one of the first abilities you get, literally the second ability you get, is a Dragoon Jump.
Yes. And it's like a really good one too. And it can be changed a lot with some of the things you can do. Like, you can make it so when you jump up in the air and land down, you buff your entire team. You can make it to where it knocks enemies back. You can make it to where they stuns them. I think late game you'll be able to do some really interesting things with, like, their spell trait system. But again, like, it's kind of your mileage may vary because it is very Diablo 3. Like, there are treasure goblins. They're not goblins. They're like glowing green gold beetles.
They're gold bugs.
but they absolutely exist. Cursed chests exist. All the little things that like we've gotten used to in Diablo 3 exist in this game and work just as well.
I mean, it's looked like they took the systems from Diablo 3 that they liked and the systems from Path of Exile that they liked and ran them all together.
That's reasonable.
And I'm fine with this. Like, it's working.
The good thing is that most of the systems that they chose that they liked, turns out they're systems that are the ones that I like. And it seems to work really great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. Like, I think that I found out about controller play with Diablo too late. Like, it was after everybody was sort of into and through it.
Well, and part of the problem too is like you still don't have controller support for Diablo on the PC.
Right. And so I can't, like, I get that, I fully get that clicky mouse control is what people want, but I physically can't do it for more than like 30 minutes to an hour. And so like I need a controller to even be able to play it without it actually being painful. But like hopefully there's good controller support, or it's worth figuring out how to hack it in before everybody's bored with it, or possibly before the servers come back up.
Well, and I think the problem is like it's not a situation where it's necessarily hacking it in. It's just it's not configured by default because for whatever reason they never got around to turning it on and giving you a good interface for configuring your controller. But like it's obviously there. Like keybinds all work. Movement works. I will probably see if I can figure out a way to flip back and forth between two control layouts, because one of the things that I loved on the Switch is, playing Diablo from bed. And it would be really cool to be able to do this over GeForce Now in bed and play Wolcen. So another thing that came up this week is we got a live letter ahead of the upcoming 5.2 patch in Final Fantasy XIV, and I think some people watched it, because I certainly didn't, and I would love to be filled in on the details.
Well, there's also the preliminary patch notes now, so this is like the next big patch. This is 5.2, so we're getting the next series of Eden raids to continue the adventures of the Wol's not very good memory.
Yep. We know what a couple of the bosses are.
Yeah.
And we know what Reen's emo equivalent looks like.
Yes.
She's very emo.
Yeah.
Apparently, our bad memory of Ramuh is that he's like a buff centaur dude.
Yeah, so they were saying like he's like older players remember Ramuh, and then newer players think of Ixion from Stormblood. So they combined those two. So he's literally, yeah.
I love that this is a recurring thing for this raid, is that our memory sucks.
I just expected Ramuh to be just a beard.
A beard, yeah.
Just a beard.
And he actually has just like a
guns.
very small beard now. He doesn't even have a big beard.
It's all very strange.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I feel cheated, though, because, like, the beard is the most important part of Ramuh.
I mean, it's fair. I was pretty surprised.
Yeah. And it seems like we're going to be fighting Ifrit and Garuda simultaneously, which seems like a terrible idea.
Yes. But that also means we probably don't know who the last encounter will be, so that's worrisome.
Yeah.
I have some guesses.
Yeah. Yeah, there are some people that are certainly hoping for certain ones, so it's going to be interesting to see who we get.
Also coming next patch, Ruby Weapon.
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, what? Ugh.
Yeah. It sounds like maybe it's Gaius' fault, or I'm unclear.
Probably just kind of given certain things that have happened, so yes.
Yeah. The Empire is in an uproar, events occur, and Ruby Weapon.
What has science wrought?
Which implies that we might one day have to also face Emerald.
I don't remember being truly awful, but I do remember Emerald being misery.
They're both awful.
They're both kind of terrible.
Yeah, so this is probably going to be the next like Primal series.
But horrible Imperial weapons.
Great.
Yeah.
Please look forward to it.
There is sadly a distinct lack of Hildebrand in the patch notes.
No, but they're adding his stories to New Game Plus, so that might hopefully hint that maybe soon.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
How is New Game Plus?
I mean, it's I haven't tried it a lot, but it's nice. I mean, you don't get any rewards. I was hoping maybe they would give you some XP, but that's not a thing. But
Boo.
yeah, but it lets you go
Wait.
back and you can replay some of the old duties and stuff like that.
If it's not a way to level your alt jobs, then what is the point?
Yeah.
To re-see old stuff.
Yeah.
That's basically all it's for.
Yeah, to
I
refresh
have
your
an
memory.
in-room. I can watch videos.
But you can't replay story battles there.
Like I feel like this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah, it's a nice thing, but like they really could do maybe a little something more with it. Like I know they're also adding like the old Alliance Raid series, so like if you don't remember Crystal Tower, you can go back and watch that now again, or I guess if you want to see your character's face on the screen, if you care about that. Let's see. They're adding ocean fishing.
Yeah.
So yeah,
Like
some
you-
people are very excited about that.
Get on a ship with a couple of other people and go out fishing to earn points.
Yeah, I think that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
I'll be trying that out for sure.
There's
There-
one new dungeon.
Yeah, I guess that is going to be the thing now. I believe it is only one dungeon per patch cycle now. And then,
Yeah.
of course, trials and whatever, but I don't believe we are getting 2 dungeons anymore.
And
They are
new-
adding a new beast tribe, though, and gatherers this time.
Yes,
Yeah.
gatherers only.
And probably one of the best mounts in the game.
Scree.
Scree.
But yeah, presumably they decided that the Ishgard restoration takes care of crafters, which is probably pretty accurate.
That's
It
true.
does mean I need to actually level up a gatherer at some point.
Yeah, I believe you need to be 70 to start the beast tribes. So gatherers are getting some of the Ishgard stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah, so they're adding that in too.
Yeah, the next step of Ishgard is supposed to be in this one. Not sure how many more steps before we, get to have houses there.
Yeah. And then like lots of other little small tweaks, like grand companies are going up to rank 30 now.
So everybody
From
needs
the
to come
previous
back and start
cap of 8.
playing again.
Yeah, yeah.
We get to have bigger
Wait,
free,
what's
free
that
company
mean?
chests.
Hold more inactive buffs.
Yeah.
So it's like it doesn't seem like a whole lot yet, but maybe they will add more interesting things. Like, some people were hoping like maybe we can put up a 3rd buff or something.
That would be nice.
Yeah.
Oh, and the most important thing, umbrellas.
Yes.
What?
It's very important to protect your skin.
Yes. Your Warrior of Light can now actually have an umbrella that will protect you from the elements if you wish to use it.
Okay.
It'll keep you dry in the rain. It will cast shade.
Mhm.
It's great.
Can you use it to cast shade on other players?
One thing that's kind of interesting too, if you like collecting weapons, Dancer and Gunbreaker are finally getting some new old weapons from Shinryu, which is kind of odd that they're starting with Shinryu, but it's like, oh, okay, so they are maybe slowly adding in some of the old primal weapons, which they have not done yet.
I mean, several of the ones that aren't Shinryu are crafted. Well, I guess Shinryu ones are also crafted.
Shinryu not yet. He didn't have any craftable stuff.
Right, he didn't
yet.
have shiny crafted weapons.
No. The last set of shiny crafted weapons were Nidhogg's.
We didn't get shiny crafted Zervan weapons at any point.
No, Zervan is the only one I think that was left out of Heavensward.
Huh.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. And then, yeah, Stormblood has had no shiny crafted weapons whatsoever. But I think that covers a lot of the main stuff, other than, of course, more MSQ.
Yeah, I had been contemplating poking my head back in largely because I knew I had 2 patches worth of content to gobble up.
A lot of
Yeah.
interesting stuff has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've spent the last couple of weeks getting caught up.
Oh, good.
I should also get caught up.
The dungeon in the most recent patch is pretty cool.
Oh, yeah, that one is fun.
The Grand Cosmos.
Yes,
Mhm.
and if you do it with a trust, you get to bring the Crystal Exarch with you one more time.
That's kind of awesome.
I think they did say during the live letter that some of the cutscenes in the MSQ are going to be very long. So, I mean, they usually are pretty long, but I think they said that definitely make sure that you set aside a good portion of your day if you plan on doing MSQ first.
Jeez. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised. But...
I mean, it sounds like maybe this is the stage where we're going to actually get our friends back home.
I'm hoping so.
Huh.
I don't know. My theory is that we're going to take them home, but we're also going to leave copies of them on the first, so they'll end up like existing in both places simultaneously, like a Thomas Riker sort of thing.
That would be cool and also confusing, but hey, sure.
Time travel is weird, yo.
Mm-hmm.
And dimensional travel is even weirder.
So yeah, lots of good stuff. Some interesting, fun things that I am certainly excited to try out Tuesday. All the things.
So another thing that I know has been happening is Tam has been re-exploring Star Wars Galaxies, and at some point convinced me to install it and give it another go.
It's weird. It's a weird experience. Okay, so I sort of joke sometimes that I've had my heart broken by 2 MMOs. World of Warcraft, because of Encourage, and Star Wars Galaxies. And boy do I have a lot of feelings about Star Wars Galaxies. It's a really weird game. And I guess the point is you can play this incredibly dead game for mostly free because they can't legally charge for it.
Mm-hmm.
And they more or less have the begrudging support of whoever still holds the licensing, because it is known about it and no one has made an effort to shut it down.
Yeah, it's like as long as they don't break any of the rules, they can do it. It's fine. Something
proprietary server code.
Well, that's the thing, is that's what makes it sort of interesting, is they rewrote all of their own server code.
Huh.
That's sort of that's sort of part of how they're doing it. And admittedly, they wrote their own server code with that's what I'm looking for, with the help of people who originally built the game. But what's really, I don't know, what I find really interesting is it's like Star Wars Galaxies is legendary for being the death of, they killed themselves with the NGE.
Oh,
where
yeah.
they're like, we thought we were going to make the game better by changing the way it all worked. And that's not a good idea, as we have discovered. But they're also not wrong.
Well, and Legends is an NGE server, right? And it is by far the most popular of the servers.
Yeah.
I mean, and I've already had people post on my blog talking shit about how I need to play a real server. but it's mostly, I don't know. So I guess for me, I come in from this from a weird angle, because while I beta tested Star Wars Galaxies, it never really sank in. I had already moved on to non-EverQuestian games, and when it released, I was playing, I don't know if I was playing Horizon or if I was playing City of Heroes, but I was somewhere in there.
Yeah.
When it released, and I was playing more interactive games, as in, well, not interactive is probably the wrong word, but more engaging combat games.
So the jump between EverQuest and WoW was a much wider and more varied thing than gets credit for.
Mm-hmm.
But EverQuest combat, if you were, say, a fighter, was you turn on auto attack and you stand next to the mob until one of you is dead.
Yes, and you had a single button that had all of your other abilities on it, and you just spam that one macro.
Yeah.
It had kick and taunt, and anything else that you could do that was not auto attack was on this one button.
Yeah. And there wasn't the idea of having a suite of abilities, basically treating abilities like spells and just giving everybody abilities, was new. in that time period in between. And like WoW popularized it, but like there were a bunch of other games that were trying to figure that out. And Star Wars Galaxies was one of them. Star Wars Galaxies had this like frankly hot disaster of a class and build system that mostly it was lots of complexity for not a lot of gameplay. And so what they wanted to do with the new game experience and the combat upgrade was take all of this complicated and there's a lot of complexity to it because you can have different gear and gear is incredibly varied. Abilities are incredibly varied. Your build itself could be incredibly varied. And they took it and turned it into something more akin to what you might recognize in a standard MMO or in a more modern MMO.
And for me, like someone who did not play much Star Wars Galaxies, it has been interesting going back and seeing this post-combat upgrade game because, like, for me, I played a lot of EverQuest 1, and then at some point after the launch of World of Warcraft, I went back and, like, fell in love with EverQuest 2. And that was a stark difference between those two games. Like, massive difference. And it's been interesting seeing Star Wars Galaxies, which neatly fits as kind of the missing link between those two games.
Yeah.
Because, like, I can, now that I've seen post-combat upgrade or update Star Wars Galaxies, I can see the game that fits between them. Because, like, Star Wars Galaxies is, like, sort of halfway between the two.
Yeah, and Galaxies, the thing that gets me in like, 15-year retrospect is they were right. The game is better. The NGE and the combat upgrade makes the game better. Like, no, you can't. It removes all of the janky nonsense. Like, you can't do the old ridiculous stuff like I'm a bioengineer animal handler and I genetically engineer my 12 Rancor pets. Like, that stuff was funny and it was like, okay, that's satisfying and interesting, but it didn't make the gameplay. It was like I'm going to say something controversial. It's like coming up with that perfectly min-max D&D character that ruins every game they're in. It's like, okay, cool, you've made this thing, but what's the point? Other than to prove that you've broken the game over your knee.
Right.
And in a multiplayer game, especially an MMO, it's like, okay, well, what do you do now? And so I've been playing, and Star Wars Galaxies did not have Jedi when the game launched. Fun fact. And it was a mystery. How did you become a Jedi?
Yes, it was a whole thing that turned out to be a boring grind.
It was an incredibly boring grind. I definitely did it. It was a boring grind that involved, if you wanted to be a Jedi, and you had to do a pretty hateful grind. And then once you had done said hateful grind, you had to delete your character and make a new one from scratch. And if you did this, you would have a force sensitive character. And through a couple of other steps, if you got to a force sensitive character, you could now permadie. Like Jedi had permadeath. Nobody else did, but Jedi did. So that was a whole thing.
Yep. The intention was that Jedi were supposed to be incredibly special and rare, and in practice it did not work.
Nope.
At all.
And part of the NGE was, you want to be a Jedi? You can just be a Jedi. Just be a Jedi. It's what you wanted. And so I did. And it's pretty fun. I get to be the Jedi character. And it's not like, it's not trivial. Like, lightsabers are contraband. And I can be in a random city and have stormtroopers drop in on me and try to kill me or try to hunt me down. It's a thing. But it's neat. It's like, try to keep a low profile, know which places I can be and can't be, make interesting choices. One of the things I've been doing is playing the jump to light speed stuff, which is basically they put X-Wing versus TIE Fighter in the MMO with RPG progression. It's actually really fun. You have to like X-Wing versus TIE Fighter, but assuming you do...
Which is a hurdle, because, I apparently didn't like that game.
Like, it's a flight sim.
Blasphemy.
It's not a thing. This is a flight sim.
Yeah, like, for me, the most flight simmy I ever wanted to play was Star Fox.
Yeah, and this is not that. This is not, like, Star Fox is a rail shooter. This is no Star Fox.
But with the mouse controls, I think I could get used to it, maybe.
Right now, however, I am in, having joined the Rebel Alliance hell. The faction you pick, whether that's Rebel, Imperial, or Mercenary, determines what ships you can fly. And Rebel ships, I wanted Rebel ships because I love the A-Wing and the B-Wing. Rebel ships follow the following progression. You can have a Z-95, which, if you're not familiar with the ship, is like asks and answers the question, what if X-Wings sucked?
Yes.
Instead of an X-Wing, you only have 2 wings, which means you only have 2 guns, and you look dumber. So that's your starting ship, which is not great. And then the next ship you can get is a Y-Wing, the Cadillac of starfighters. It's not maneuverable in the slightest. It hits like a truck and is really tanky, but is not maneuverable. And the first Y-Wing you can get is the kind that needs a gunner seat, so you can't even fly it by yourself and have full firepower, which is not ideal. And also, you're fighting TIE interceptors.
Ooh.
Yeah. So there's a period of time where, unless you can get the credits to get a really fancy Z95, which I don't have, you're stuck in just awful Y-Wing hell.
That sounds terrible.
It'll be better once the next ship I get is an X-Wing, and then things will be fine, but I need to get there.
But also, Tam has been coaxing me to come play Gunner.
It's really fun. Like, one of the things I do remember about Galaxies was you could get your friends together, hop in a, Millennium Falcon-ish style ship where you've got one person flying it, 2 people in the gunner things, and you go blow up ties, and it worked. And you could have people who are like, the bigger your ship, the more stations it had, so you could have people doing various stuff, whether that's going out on a mining ship and mining in a group. Maybe you have a setup where, like, you've got one person running an escort wing and another person doing a mining venture. You can use all of this stuff to make everybody new starships. If you have an incredibly awesome, fancy starship, your friends can hop in and use it, so they don't have to, like, grind in order to be able to sit in your starship. You can fly around in your ship and do cool stuff, and also they get full XP. So if you want to catch your friend up who's new and you have a ship that can, like, handle it, you go fight really big stuff and they just join you, and it works. And I always thought that was really, really neat. It also has the housing system that inspired WildStar, which is probably all I need to say about its housing system to adequately communicate what I want to get over. What I want to.
Except for it's really sad that outside Anchorhead, not a single player has built a garage, and Anchorhead doesn't have a garage.
Oh,
because I managed to blow up my speeder. I have to go find a garage to get it repaired now.
Oh, right. Because you probably did the thing that you're used to and just flew your mount through a bunch of hostile mobs, like, whatever.
No, I did one step further. Like, I hopped out, started fighting a bunch of stuff, forgot to unsummon my mount.
Oh.
Because hopping out and unsummoning are 2 different things. And they proceeded to turn around and ignore me for a while and attack my mount.
Aw.
It was at the White Thranta camp that you get sent to early on.
Oh yeah, that's the other thing, is there's, like, quest content. There's, like, quests and story.
Quests in Star Wars Galaxies. What next?
Right? I haven't even done them, but they exist.
So but it's also, like, problem at the time that this was, like, there was a whole bunch of systems that people had sort of built on top of, and then NGE just streamlined a whole bunch of stuff out.
Pretty much.
Fundamentally different game.
Yeah,
Yes.
people were very used to what Star Wars Galaxies was, and the people who were playing it had built up, their characters in that, and then New Game Experience turned it into a completely different game.
Well, the NGE may ultimately be a better game. It's not the same game, and it didn't attract new people.
Yeah.
So everyone who liked it currently left, and it didn't get anybody new to replace them.
Yeah, it would be like if A Realm Reborn had completely failed to bring anybody new in.
Yep. And that's kind of the tragedy, because it's like I think that if this game had released in this form, we would have a very, very different MMO landscape. Because this is an open world. Star Wars Galaxies is an open world sandbox game that isn't about PvP.
Yeah.
Well, and by the time NGE came out, like World of Warcraft was a thing already, wasn't it?
It was either was or it was in beta.
Yeah, NGE was 2005. So yeah, World of Warcraft had just come out, which probably explains why I wasn't playing Star Wars Galaxies by that point. Because I played up through Jump to Lightspeed and then kind of fell out of it.
Yeah, and as it turns out, there's like 2 more expansions. I also made an error. That's the other thing is like most of the emulated servers, they've gotten rid of / streamlined all of the things that were there to make you hang out and pay subscriptions. So like XP is much faster for starters.
And you end up with veteran rewards just from like time since your account has been created.
Yeah.
And you start off with like a boost to 90, but like I haven't wanted to do that because like I don't know this game.
So I dug out my old I remembered where I could grind a lot very fast and did that thing, and it was an error. That was not the correct choice.
So you should have leveled slowly?
Yes.
Okay.
Because what happened, because I was like, okay, I want to get my feet under me. I remember that here's a place I can get to 90 really fast. Cool, this is great. And then following on that, here's also where I can farm for valuable drops and have cash. Problem: hitting 90 does not mean good gear, and level does not mean anywhere near as much as you might be used to. When I hit 90, there were level like 35 things that could floor me.
Well, because you were effectively a naked 90.
Yeah, basically. And it's like, yeah, I've got a bunch of Jedi powers and the stuff that I've gotten from the specific Jedi quests, like my own lightsaber, but it's not like good. But not realizing this, I went to Dathomir, where I was going to farm, and pretty quickly got my entire ass handed to me.
I was going to say, I feel like we've talked recently about what a bad idea it is to go to Dathomir.
Oh, it was a terrible plan. And so then it was like, what do I do about gear? And I'm horrifically starved for cash. But at the same time, the market is surprisingly non-gougy. Like, it's interesting. The game is dead, and so like nobody seems to be trying to win like massive internet points for like having the biggest numbers or whatever, because it's already been figured out. So like I'm gonna need about 50,000 credits to buy an X-wing when I get there. Maybe 100 to 150,000 if I want to kit it out in all of the right equipment and so on. And that's not that hard. I'm sitting on like 400,000 right now just from doing stuff. Farming up a set of gear got me like 150,000 by itself in like an hour, as well as a full set of gear for me to use.
I mean, I feel like one has to say, in terms of scale, when you say it is a dead game, like Legends has around 2,000 concurrent players and a total population of around 50,000 players.
Yeah.
So, like, it is not an insignificant server.
I was going to say, I'm actually now curious, what was the population of the game when it was active?
Probably not a ton more than that.
Yeah.
Because MMOs were not that big back then.
Well, like, Like, the maximum I ever used... Okay, so back in the day, EverQuest and DAOC used to give you number of players logged into your server. And it used to be somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 per server.
Yeah. And this sits at like 15 to 1,800 concurrent.
Yeah.
You see people all over the place, but you can still go... It's like there's enough people that crowded places feel busy, and at the same time, you can go and find quiet places, and there's places for you to build your house if you want to build your house, and so on.
And random people just kind of help you out?
Yeah, random people are happy to help you out. Like, a couple of things that I've been doing to get on my feet. In one case, because I've been trying to burn through to get my X-Wing, there's basically a guy who advertises on Tatooine, who's like, hey, do you need space XP? Whisper me for an invite to the group, and has a macro set up that if anybody whispers at me, you get an invite from him. And he's got a like really powerful kitted out ship with like 6 turrets on it parked in a war zone. And so you fly up to his ship, you dock with his ship, and take control of a turret and blast things out of the sky until you're tired of it. And it works. Like, I've gotten a ton of XP, and what they're getting out of it is I'm getting ridiculously fast XP. And they're just collecting loot, and it works fine. I'm perfectly happy for them to get the credits and ship parts, because it's a lot faster. It lets me level up a lot faster and more effectively than I would otherwise, so I can get to a ship where I can actually farm those parts myself, and they get loot just by having it available for people to level up quickly. I had the experience last night where there's a guy who's like, I'm paying 100,000 credits an hour for people to come and man the turrets on my mining ship and basically blow up asteroids. And I figured, why not? Worst I lose is an hour of time. Wound up doing it for about 2 hours, a little more than 2 hours. And then it was me and one other person. And when we called it, there was some disagreement about how much time it had actually been, and the guy like paid us for an hour when it was really more like 2. And so there was this like back and forth about how much time was it really, and the other person was like, man, I hope your rep is good enough for it, because there's one server, everyone's on this server. The other guy has set up a macro that just responds to the other guy's advertising saying, hey, don't bother, he'll try to screw you out of time. And so this guy, I've seen him now, he's like trying to find another planet to set up shop on that's as busy as Tatooine and not having very much success because he tried to skimp out on paying people. And now he's having to offer more than he was before. And so it's interesting to see like that social dynamic in place again.
What was interesting too is like when I posted about it a couple times on my blog, and I had like random people on Twitter welcome me to the server that were not necessarily responsible for running the server, but just like random players.
Yeah, for the most part, the experiences I've had with random players, and I haven't really interacted with very many random players, has been pretty positive. But there's also very little that random players can do to really make my life more difficult.
Yeah, like
it's hard to grief in this game.
Fairly, like, and it has better train code than EverQuest had, so that doesn't seem to be a thing. I don't even know what this person was doing, but like there was some kind of non-combat class, and they were down in the same dungeon I was, and like getting their ass handed to them. So like I let them tag the encounter a bunch of times and me kill it until they got whatever it was that they needed. I still have no clue what they were doing, but like they seemed super happy to have gotten the help. I am playing a commando, and I am guessing this is where commando from SWTOR came from, because like it is a mostly DPS class but also has heals.
Yep. Yeah, that was Tor's commando is a weird throwback for me.
Yeah, because like
it feels like they wanted a Republic side class for Bounty Hunter and couldn't figure it out.
Yep.
Well, like I did some reading up, and I was basically trying to find what would be the easiest and most self-sufficient class for you to solo, and a lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, no, Commando. Commando's definitely where you want to go." So I'm a Mon Calamari Commando. I figured at some point I would play a Jedi, but maybe not my first character. It's got a weird interface. Like, there's this whole thing where you press a hotkey and it changes the action of your like right mouse button, and then you have to click your right mouse button. So that's some oddity to get used to, but like I more or less have.
It has the most involved crafting system of any game ever. To some extent, kind of to its detriment, its crafting system is complicated, like extremely so. But also, like, it does a thing where you can make something you can make something good enough very easily. You can make something excellent with a bit of work, and you can make something absolutely ridiculously over the top awesome if you are willing to put in a insane amount of effort. And sometimes you are.
It also has a really interesting thing that you can basically just respec or change classes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. If you're the same type of class, you can just change classes.
What do you mean by type of class?
Combat or crafting or support, where support is entertainer. If you are a crafting class, you can swap to another crafting class. If you are a combat class, you can swap to another combat class.
Is there still... So entertainer is like dancer?
Yeah.
Okay. So that class still exists?
Yep. Entertainer, there's... As far as I can tell, there's two types of entertainers. There's like fighter-tainers who play in a group and fight stuff, and there's buffer-tainers who hang out in cantinas and give people absolutely ludicrous buffs.
Yeah, I had heard that was the way to go, was to find someone that was a group of entertainers and like be a single combat person in that group.
Yes.
And they just hang out in the cantina and like you go out into the field and go hunt.
Yep. You go blow stuff up with seriously insane buffs. Galaxies really wanted to create an ecosystem where you cared about, you didn't just go bounce from quest to quest, like you actually interacted with cities and did things in cities for reasons. Mm-hmm. And originally the way they did this was the more you went out and fought stuff, like when your health went down or whenever your stats went down, like health, stamina, mind, or whatever it was, you could slowly have your maximum decrease, and you would have to go to a doctor to have your physical stats improved, and you'd have to go to a entertainer to have your mental stats restored. And they more or less replaced that with, if you hang out in a cantina, you get ginormous buffs.
So instead of having to repair, you just need to go to a cantina to recharge?
Pretty much, yeah. And then players like are in cantinas and are managing their they get XP for people watching them. And so you have people who would put on an actual show. I don't know how much of that's going on here because I haven't hung out in cantinas, but yeah, it's a really interesting throwback, and it's surprisingly playable.
There are moments where running it in 4K is not a good idea, but like I'm mostly playing it in 1080p.
I did see the text size issue.
We found a fix for that.
Yeah, I found a fix for that. That was absolutely a problem. That text
even at 1080p, it was a problem.
Yeah, that text was real small, and honestly, that text was pretty small when the game was a thing. But at 4K, that text is not happening.
I mean, at that time, 1024 by 768 was probably the best you could hope for.
Yep.
That's the default resolution.
Yep.
That's the high settings default resolution. But players have come up with a updated texture pack and stuff. So it's not it's not going to win prizes, but it looks fine.
It's been really interesting hearing songs from like the Force Awakens soundtrack blended into the game.
Yeah, that's true. They've added a bunch of music. They do the game had pretty impressive audio to begin with. Like they did some clever stuff with music fading and so on. But I mean, it's obviously nothing like FF14 does, but yeah, it's fun. It's sort of neat to revisit, and it's a big Star Wars sandbox. Like, what more do you want? It's a sandbox game that actually works and isn't just a PvP hellhole.
It's more or less playable. Like, I don't have the nostalgia behind it that Tam does, but, like, I'm enjoying myself in the little spurts that I'm playing.
And it's interesting, for me, I have nostalgia for the game that isn't this one. And so this is a very new experience for me in a lot of cases. Like, I had left the game in frustration prior to everything that happened here. And so it's like recognizable in some sense, but also very new in others. But yeah, I get to play a Jedi in a big open world Star Wars game and also fly a ship around. It's like everything I want right now, because I'm apparently on a intense Star Wars kick at the moment.
And I think with that, we have essentially run out our normal recording time, and we will bump the topics to next week that are remaining.
Okay.
Any final parting thoughts that are real quick?
Guess not.
Well, in that case, hopefully you enjoyed the show, and we will see you again next week. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
See you. See you. See you. See you. See you. See you. See you.